Thank you for joining us. Welcome to another installment of the Lawn Chair Philosophy Foundation's Philosophy in Motion interview series. Today we have Ryan Christman of Reality Seeker joining us. Ryan, thank you for coming.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course, yes. Well, let's just dive right into these questions. How would you describe your personal highest advantage?
That was the first time when I saw these questions that I had ever heard the phrase highest advantage. But I did some digging around, and apparently that's an ethical framework for Plato's ethical framework. Is that correct?
You can definitely phrase it that way. I am definitely drawing inspiration from the eudaimonia tradition. However, I recognize that there are multiple avenues of understanding that phrase, so I don't want to assume.
The way that I interpreted it was, why do I do what I do? You know, like, who am I trying to serve? What am I trying to accomplish with it? So I kind of discovered philosophy through my recovery journey. I'm a former Air Force officer who has bipolar disorder. That struck me while I was serving overseas. And it was kind of a call to philosophy, even though I didn't realize it until later. Like, I had to figure out what that meant for me, you know, to have that experience and what I needed to do with it. Because it wasn't something that totally ever goes away, you know, even though you, in recovery, you get better. So I had to figure out, like, was there anything there that was, it was telling me something, or something I needed to just completely push out of my life, or what? So when I got into graduate school later, you know, I still had a lot of the same beliefs and same ideas that had developed, you know, through my younger life. And those things influenced the way that I related to the schoolwork, the material, and the way that I related to the other students, and that I related to the professors. And it turned out that I had a very unique way of looking at those things. And I was searching for answers. I didn't know, like, I was like, what am I searching for? I can feel myself searching for something, but I didn't know. And it turned out that philosophy was it. You know, I think philosophy was it. And I discovered after I got out of school later that that was something that I was really a passion of mine, and that I really needed to sink my teeth into and try to figure out and see how that could help me and satisfy this need that had been building in me all that time.
Yeah, spoken like a true philosopher. I think philosophy was it. Never coming too hard on an answer. Open-mindedness, that's great. All right, so you would define that personal highest advantage in terms of your philosophical journey and your educational discoveries and growth and academic endeavors.
So there's a friend of mine that we go out for coffee regularly, and he has taught philosophy before, and we talk about praxis. And that's something that we both feel very strongly about, that you know, it's great to read all this stuff and even do writing or like do groups, but like then what are you what is coming of it? You know, like, what are you accomplishing with it? And I don't like the word accomplish, because that's kind of loaded for some of the ways I look at things. But still, there needs to be a practical element. So, or at least in my opinion. So I try to find that with projects that I do.
Yeah, all right. Now, moving on, does that personal highest advantage connect to a universal or common notion of humanity's highest advantage, would you say?
Okay, so I like postmodernist philosophy. Not everybody does. I like it. I know that one of the things that they counsel against is having like a grand narrative that governs the way that things work. And which is funny, because that's one of the things that I'm most drawn to, is as somebody who has bipolar disorder and who thinks that he notices connections in his regular everyday experience, and is very keenly in tune with pattern recognition as a result. I'm always constantly trying to look at the things that I'm noticing, looking at the things I'm reading or that I'm seeing when I'm talking to people, and trying to organize them and try to figure out, like, without, like, sometimes my thesis is that if you are adding organization, you're kind of taking yourself away from a true understanding of what's there. You know, if you're adding a level of analysis. But I really struggle. I don't know if I want to call it a struggle, because it might be a positive. We'll find out someday. You know, like, I'm trying to like distill it down to like really clear principles that I can then apply to the practical stuff that we were talking about in the previous question.
So in the name of an open mind and an authentic relationship with the world and other human beings, maybe it's best not to assume what the highest advantage is for every single person. That grand narrative you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like that. Speaking of practice, getting back to that, how would you say your everyday practical endeavors serve the achievement of your personal highest advantage? So we've touched on that a little bit, but maybe you can go into some more detail about maybe Reality Seeker and its everyday affairs, or wherever else you'd like to take that answer.
So Reality Seeker is an approximately 3-year-old project. And the name came from my relationship to reality, right? Like the way that I was thinking about trying to move forward in life and trying to achieve certain goals, and the anxieties and pressures and stresses that come from that type of a being, the way that you feel about your relationship to the world. So so I named it that, and then I found I had been going to various meetup groups. I listened very closely to what people are saying, so I was able to pinpoint people who I thought would kind of get where I was coming from with the reason for starting a new group. So it was a small group that we started. It was about a half dozen people, and we worked through a lot of the basics, and it was a pretty supportive group, so it went pretty well. And towards the end of the first year, I was talking to the members of the group, and they knew that I was bipolar, and I was saying that I feel like, you know, one of the other great things that I've been involved with during the year since I've been in the Air Force is the recovery movement in the state of Michigan, where I live. And I mean, without going into a big explanation of what mental health recovery entails, it involves some unique perspectives as far as like how you relate to somebody that's going through the throes of the immediacy of having a mental illness. So like there's like mental model, there's like the scientifically accepted methods of the way that providers would relate to somebody in that situation. And then there's the ways that people that have experienced the illness and have worked through their story and tried to like I did. I actually wrote a book, like worked through all that stuff and tried to understand what that meant. Like we kind of go about it differently. This is one of the things that I get at in my philosophy, is like trying to understand why having kind of a loose, open interpretation, like when you're trying to understand what's like connect to another person, right? Like you can't just have like the way that it is and approach that person and expect to have a good relationship. Like you have to be able to listen to what they're saying and kind of connect interpersonally to understand what's there and you know, what the connection is. So I thought that aspect of mental health recovery was very I don't want to say very similar to philosophy, because the more I get to know what popular philosophy is in the United States of America, I'm not sure that they're aligned. However, you may want to debate me on that one, but
Oh no, I agree. You find friends with lawn chair philosophy.
so I thought that what the people in recovery that were working as certified peer support specialists had to share with the world needs to be shared with the world in a greater context than just, you know, mental health recovery. Like, I think it has greater application. And I think that the people who are in mental health recovery think that, hey, this stuff is great. Not philosophy, but like mental health recovery itself. Like, this stuff is great, and we want to share it with the world. And like making that connection, like that's what I like. The second year of the project, that's what I kind of spent the whole time doing, is like working through it and like trying to make the connections between that and like traditional philosophy, and like say, you know what, this is something that we all could find useful and would help our overall mission of um, growing the recovery message and helping people that are in that situation, and other people who are in situations, you know, maybe don't have a mental illness but have some other thing that they're trying to uh, overcome or master, and the way that the system is set up, it makes it hard for them to fully accomplish that. So this is beginning the third year of Reality Seeker, and you know, it's really hard to like think about all of the stuff that goes into a comprehensive philosophy, right? And like I've been thinking about it, I'm not sure that having a comprehensive philosophy, like that one size fits all grand narrative, like that's necessarily the answer, right? So the way that I look at philosophy, and the way that I look at, you know, things being open and being looking for difference and looking for opportunities to find a way to do something better, like that kind of mindset is why I consider it kind of a philosophy of creativity. And so
Yeah.
the last couple weeks since the new year, or before the new year and now after the new year, I've been trying to, I'm also a songwriter, like that's one of the things I really like to do. So I'm trying to figure out a way to merge all of my interests into this creative philosophy of creativity, which is what I intended it to be in the first place. You know, so I think that that's happening. I mean, the website itself was rather developed the end of last year, or sometime last year, because I had originally, what I did was, since I have a journalism degree, I would interview professional philosophers, and I would just get the answers to the questions that I had, you know, like trying to fill in the gaps and like come up with this answer, right? Which may not be the right way, but like, so I had all that stuff organized on there. And then when we started having meetings with people who are certified peer support specialists who have mental health conditions, and some of the other philosophy enthusiasts who had helped during the first year, I started recording the messages that we had, or taking a transcript from the meetings that we had, and then making those into articles, and then starting to shoot those out across Facebook and the other various social media to try to grow it, you know. So what I'm doing now with the songwriting and the still philosophy, like I'm reading a book about Deleuze right now, so I'm trying to make that simple for people, you know, because like some groups will do like a book group, you know, where you have a really difficult source text or something and you all read through it together. With my goal of trying to reach people who wouldn't necessarily be attracted to philosophy, I thought that if I could take the stuff that I wanted them to consider and kind of distill it down into something that was regular language, that they could think about the ideas. One of the things that I like to read, I have graphic novels. They're real simple, but they're philosophy. I can read everything, you know, because like it would take me forever to read all the philosophers, their source texts, you know,
Yeah.
and like other various fields of study that, like, you know, it take the rest of your natural life to be able to read all that stuff. So
Mhm.
I appreciate when it's done at a high level, things that help me get the gist quickly so that I can do something with it, you know, because practice, like I said, that, I mean, that's one of my goals. So so the first meeting that we had this year, I shared some song lyrics from a song that I'm working on, which is directly related to the philosophy that I'm studying. And I did like a 2-paragraph synopsis of the beginning of this book. So I don't know how that's going to go. You know, like that's part of the beauty and the challenge of this type of philosophy is that you need to be able to um, have some level of comfort with ambiguity or like not knowing what's going to happen. You know, so you know, as a human being, like that's not necessarily easy for me, as it wouldn't be for anybody. But
Yeah.
hopefully I can turn that into excitement that we're going to be collaborative and see what comes of it. So
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's one of the most beautiful answers to that question I've heard. Yes. Hell yes. I'm all about that. And this leads very, very smoothly into the next question. How do you come to know the basic patterns of the mind and of the human experience? What's your point of access to those patterns? Would that be your art and your music?
yeah.
Proceed with that.
Okay. So even though I value art very much, I'm still kind of a nerd student type, you know, and like I really like reading about philosophy and thinking of things like in the abstract in that way. And I sometimes think that um, you know, that is leading me down the path of what I'm critiquing, you know, because here you have various authors who have their own way of looking at things and they have their multitude of things that have impacted the way that they chose to organize and deliver that information. So you know, I sometimes like meditation is really hard for me. It's just
Yeah.
my personal, the way I'm wired, it's hard, you know, but like I think that's what I need to be able to do, you know, and like I, because I'm real analytical, you know, and I'm like, oh, what am I supposed to see? And I get all like anxious, you know, like um so as much as possible, like I want to have this sense of awareness, like what what's coming in and why and how does that make me feel, you know.
Yeah.
Like I get in arguments sometimes with other philosophy enthusiasts because they don't value feeling as much as I do, but like I think it's important like to take note of all the sense data that's coming in and what it's doing to me or making me think about, and being able to process that, you know. So actually I was thinking about inviting some other people to learn songwriting from me, and I was thinking about like how do you come up with ideas for a song, you know. So I was like thinking, oh, like you look at the newspaper, you look at what you hear on TV, you look at other conversations with other people, stuff that you're reading on the walls, stuff, imagination, you know, like all the stuff that you've got coming in all the time. Like how do you cut through that and organize it into something that is a story or a piece of poetry or like some sort of coherent um, small work of art, you know. So I think that's what we're faced with all the time, you know. Songwriting is like one example of how we have to cut through everything and like figure out like what's important to us and how we want to live our lives, you know. But like yeah. So tell me the question again. I want to make sure I answer it.
Or how do you come to know the basic patterns of the mind and of the human experience, and what's your point of access to those patterns? So definitely you caught up with feeling and with rigorous study, these two,
Yeah.
disparate worlds bringing together, but that's a very powerful thing to bring those two access points together.
I try to not let my conditioning and culture and like these pre-established ways of thinking about things get in the way of me having an authentic experience, so that I can like really try to figure out what's going on, and like I know that at some point I need to break it down to make sense of things, because there's like life is really complicated, right? But yeah, as much as possible. I mean, and so like even though I'm not a great meditator, like staying in the moment is obviously an ideal, about not an ideal, but like a value.
Okay. So feelings, rigorous study, and the now. All right, I like that. I have a hard time meditating as well. I do it through my rudiments, on my little practice pad. I'll get in the zone, turn on the metronome, but I can't sit still and just like imagine a rose petal falling from the sky. Like, I don't know. I don't know what they. I can't sit still either. I get it. Oh, so how do you make use of those basic patterns in your everyday practical endeavors?
So without getting deep into philosophy, I have, and we talked about maybe some of the pitfalls of a grand narrative, but like I have kind of boiled it down into this 1, 2, 3 type of philosophy. 0 being like everything, and 1 being like the constructed thing,
Okay.
and 3 being like the relationship between the two. So
Okay.
a lot of things, like when you look at like the way that languages and the way that sentences are structured, and you have the subject operating on the predicate, etc., things like that, like I think about those in those terms. So like other various forms of phenomena, that everything is complex, and not everything is complex, but there's complexity in the world, right? So I tend to think of it in those terms, and I started sketching out a book for how I want to explain that, because it's like almost like it's hard when you get to like real base principles, like it can be so generalized at that point that it doesn't hold meaning, or it's not helpful anymore, so I'm trying to like balance between trying to make it real, like straightforward, accessible language that people will understand and gravitate towards, without losing the profundity of it, so yeah, that'll be part of, I'll put that on my list for things to do this year too.
Yeah. Oh, that is a hard balance to strike, because you need foundations of language, foundations of expression, and what better foundations are there than axioms? But those axioms, especially if they're going to apply to everything, eventually mean nothing because they apply to everything. So yeah, that's a struggle. But I admire your resolve and your determination and your spirit and your mission. It's beautiful. It's great. And of course, I would say that as a fellow philosopher, like, oh yeah, making philosophy more accessible. Yes, of course, yes. But there is beautiful and this magnificent, enchanting as that mission sounds. There is a lot of hard work. So I also, admire your work ethic as well. So it's a challenge, and philosophy is not something that is seen on the reg in our society. So it's hard to draw attention to that hard work and the benefits of that hard work, and the freedom and healing that comes from philosophical exploration. So, oh man, my heart is with you. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Any more you'd like to share with us before we would part ways?
No, I think we talked about a lot. I hope that I'll be able to reach out and find more people with like interests and continue doing the work. So I was excited to do this.
Yes, great. It was exciting to have you aboard. Thank you for joining. Again, that was beautiful. You have a very powerful message, so I can't wait to share that, edit out the beginning blunders from this video, and
Is it off now?
slap it on the YouTube.
Is it off now?
Oh, no, I'll turn it off now.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Bye. Oops, nope, that's not what I want to do. Oh, Lord. Oh, goodness. More.